I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Municipal Light Board meeting for October 14th, 2020. So first on our agenda is election of officers. Before we do that, though, I want to share that Brian Folds, who's here with us today, and Pam Hill have both been appointed to the board, and so are new members to the board. So welcome, Brian, and you will welcome Pam when she joins us. Obviously, both of you have some experience with the light board, and particularly you've actually both shared on the clients on the Climate Action Committee. So you're certainly familiar with the town goals and how our light plant goals align with that. So yes. Great experience being added to the board. So appreciate that.
Pam and I have been on the same committees for the last 3. Energy Task Force and Climate Action, and now Light Board.
Yep. And I worked with Pam on the Finance Committee as well. So she's certainly got a broad background as well. So, all right. So moving on to the election of officers. What's a little unusual here is that this particular year we have 2 new board members joining the team, and traditionally the more junior board member that joins us as clerk. And the existing clerk usually steps in as chair for the new year. So in terms of potential slate of officers, Alice would normally be stepping in as chair. I think it's a little challenging to ask a new member of the board to become clerk immediately. So I'm actually volunteering to act as an acting clerk for 2 months or 3 months until someone might be comfortable to step in full-time as clerk. So I'm just volunteering that, unless Gordon, you want to volunteer to do that. But I'm willing to do that from a transition perspective. So that would be my proposed slate of officers short term.
I'd be willing to do it next month if you want. If you want to trade?
Okay.
Back and forth every other month.
Okay. Well, I think we also want someone to step in as clerk so that they're prepared for the next year's up and roll. So I think maybe for the first 3 months we could do that. That'd be great. Appreciate it.
Okay. So I'll do next month.
Okay. So with that, I think I need to entertain a motion to vote on a new election slate of officers. So I don't know that I as chair can say that, Brian. Do you want to give an offer there, Gordon?
Just clarify. So yep. Are you proposing Alice as chair?
Yes, I am.
In the same motion. All right.
So proposing Alice as chair and to have an acting chair for the next 3 months that will alternate between myself and Gordon over the next 3 months. And then probably by December, we will appoint a full-time clerk for the remainder of the term of the board.
I think you said chair, but you meant clerk when you're talking about the 3 month. Yeah.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate that clarification. So,
do you need a second for that, Wendy?
I don't know that I could offer the motion.
Okay, then I'll offer them. Oh, really? Okay, then I'll offer the motion.
Well, sorry, Gordon. I think I should offer the motion because I'm the only one not included.
Oh, fair. Good job. Yes. Thank you.
So I offer as motion that Alice is chair, and that we have for the next 3 months, Wendy and Gordon cover off on being clerk until one can be appointed.
Second. Can I second that?
Anyone can. Yeah.
I don't know. I have a vested interest.
Then I'll
Let's
second
just say yes, because I can't second my own motion.
Well, I'll second it then.
Okay, good.
All right, so all in favor? Has to be a roll call.
No.
Brian?
Aye.
Alice?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
And Wendy says aye as well. Okay, so we officially have a new slate of officers. So at this point, I guess, Alice, I can turn it over to you as chair.
All right, I may flub my way through, but
That's okay.
Okay, you can step in and offer your wise counsel as you always do. Okay, thanks for your vote of confidence, guys. Let's move on. Just the announcement for our upcoming meeting dates, November 18th and December 9th. Is November 18th? I thought that was a Friday, maybe not. I may be out of the area on November 18th. Does anybody else have conflicts about where the next, November, that's December. For
The
either
18th
of
is
those
a
two
Wednesday.
meetings? I'm sorry?
No, the 18th of November is a Wednesday,
Okay, yep, you're right.
Right.
but I
Um,
think that it should be on the 11th, not the 18th.
And is that Veterans Day?
Second Wednesday of
It's
the
on
month.
my calendar for November 11th, but that's Veterans Day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So we can move it to the 18th.
It's already proposed as the 18th.
Yeah,
Yes,
we-
it is, but it's also on the calendar and on the town calendar is the 11th.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So
Is that a town
them
holiday?
both. I
The
think so.
11th is, yes.
Yeah.
Well, we can also try Tuesday. I mean, sometimes that's worth the 17th. I don't know. Alice, are you traveling for several days?
I will be away for a while, but that I think that right now that's the suggested travel day. My son is having a baby.
Oh,
Oh,
congratulations.
Figure out how to get out to where he is. Or, well, he's
some
not.
help.
His wife is.
Yeah, with some help from his wife.
Right.
right.
But it's a long way, and we got to figure out how we're getting there.
So we can poll the board to see if there's other dates that work if we need to.
Let's hold the 18th for now.
Okay.
Okay.
And then December 9th looks fine too. I will also be out of town on December 9th. I think we'll be gone for several weeks.
On December 9th, did you say, Alice?
I don't think I'll be back by December 9th. So what I might propose after the 18th is changing the time because it will also be 5:30 in the morning.
Okay.
That's not my finest hour, just letting you guys know. So I might propose that we try meeting at a later time that day or late afternoon, which I know we've done in the past.
Yep.
But those are the two dates on the calendar.
Okay. And my only ask is that, and we'll poll people. My calendar is really busy, so I just need to get that. If we're going to meet later in the day, I just need to get that firmed up sooner than later. So,
Okay.
great.
So if I were to pencil a day in, just tentatively, what day do you think it might be, or is it too early to say?
Now let's pencil in November 18th and December 9th, and we'll
right.
figure out
The exact
maybe
time?
since we haven't figured out how we're getting there. I can leave later in the day after the meeting
Okay.
if we're driving. Okay. So pencil that into your schedules.
Yep. And then can I just ask one question to Dave? So Dave, sometimes in the past, as we think about the budget, there's been a request to have an extra meeting in December. Would you envision needing to do that?
I think so. The budget, it really depends on what's going on.
Yeah.
I think with all that we have happening at the light plant and, I think a separate budget meeting probably will be necessary. But that's something that we'll have to talk about in November and December.
Okay.
Okay.
Good to know. Thanks.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. We have minutes for July and August. September has been circulated. I have board comments. I don't know whether Laura had a chance to take a look at those for comments because she's heavily quoted in it.
I have just a couple not very small. I have a couple comments, which I will get to you.
Okay, so why don't we not vote on September till next month, but I think July and August are ready for approval. Do I have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the July 14th light board meeting as distributed yesterday, the day before yesterday, in its final form.
And August too? Can we do both at the same time?
Well, just in case people have comments or questions. I usually do.
Alice, did you get an email from me with minor corrections?
Yep, and your comments were included in the final draft.
Okay.
Thank
all
you.
right.
So I think I have.
Wait. So I did have a question about what's just a phrase. I wasn't sure what it meant. Responding to a question from Jim Terry, Mr. Hissom offered that solar customers generate changes was not a factor in the rate design. That sounds kind of like an audio transcription glitch.
Probably was.
Yeah.
I decided to let that one go.
Okay.
Do you
all
want
right.
it defined?
It is kind of down on the weeds. Maybe even just getting rid of the word changes. That solar generation was not a factor in the rate design. Might clarify that.
That works for me. I would support that. So I can amend my motion to approve the minutes from July 14th with the change that Gordon just referenced to remove the word changes.
Okay.
Okay. Second, if they need it. Remove. Okay.
You need to roll call those votes. I'm in favor.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just taking notes so that I can make that change in the minutes when I get to it. Okay.
You know what, Alice, just for the record, I'll do the minutes, so you should not have to obsess over
Oh,
that.
right.
Okay, that will help
Right.
you.
Thank
Right,
you.
right.
Whew. Okay. This requires a roll call vote. Wendy,
Yes.
Brian,
Abstain.
Gordon.
Yes.
Okay. For the record, included in the comments for July and August were comments from our former board members, Peggy Briggs and Lynn Salinger, since they were in attendance at both meetings.
Yes.
All right, next on the agenda is the director's update. Dave.
Alice, just to go back, you have the August 19th minutes, so can I just make a motion to approve the minutes from August 19th as drafted?
Second.
Gordon?
Seconded.
Any comments? Any additional comments on the August minutes?
Nope.
Hearing none, ready for a roll call vote. Wendy,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Alice, yes. Approved. And now we're ready for the director's update. Thank you, Dave. You've
All
had
right.
quite a week or two.
Really?
Yeah, it's,
Been thinking of you a lot.
so let me just shut off my email so it doesn't keep chiming in. Okay. So yeah, we had, a significant storm came through last week. We lost power to about 3,600 customers. It's about a third of the system. We had 628 broadband customers out. Most of those were out because of a loss of power. After the first 5 hours, we had about 2,400 customers back. And in the first 22 hours, we had 95% of the customers back. The longest outage was 46 hours. It was pretty widespread. We did have about 15 poles about 15 poles that broke or snapped across the town. It was a lot of work, but we ended up having 15 fiber customers that their service fiber needed to be replaced. So we had, all the electric customers back in the first 46 hours. Broadband follows that. So we had all the broadband customers back by Saturday morning, and then we had another fiber break on Ornac. That was a result of tree damage on Ornac. So that impacted, that impacted Rollingwood and some customers on Ornac, and that was completed on Sunday. We do have some significant permanent repairs to make over the next 3 to 4 weeks. So, it was a lot of work. The team did a really good job, isolating and getting power back to the customers. It's a lot of hard work. We had crews that worked 32 hours straight. Then we had Groton Electric come in for mutual aid so that we could get the crews some rest. Groton did a great job for us. The the one thing that is unfortunate is, we've been working to have a third party call center for after hours for the electric side. And we haven't executed yet, but we did identify the one vendor that we want to do that. And, the agreement between us and them is being reviewed by legal right now. So timing, obviously didn't work in our favor on this one, but it's very difficult when we have storms like this. The dispatch at the police department answers the calls, and that's been the case for years. But, that's overwhelming dispatch with non-emergency calls. People want to be able to call in. So the third-party call center is going to be a significant improvement for us, and hopefully that'll be finished up in the next week to 2 weeks. That's kind of what happened with the storm. I don't want to get to, all the specifics in terms of every road that was out, but it was quite a challenge. But I'm proud of the team.
Quite a bit of work. Congratulations on all the hard work of getting the power back up in what seemed to be a relatively short period of time.
Yeah.
Was that the largest outage we've experienced?
No.
A third of the town? No.
No. We've had some bigger ones than that. I think if you look at the numbers and the response and getting people back, it was very impressive what the team was able to accomplish. And again, we're doing this in split teams, and that was part of the problem with the call center is we have two different teams for engineering, and we tried to keep them separate, and we did that so that we could bring in the second team to give the first team some rest. And so there's just a number of different things that complicated it. But again, our response was good, and the team did a fabulous job. So can't say enough about that. There were some things that transpired with the outage, that we've never seen. We had a road on fire from the outage, and the pavement was burning. So there's every storm has its different things, but this thing happened in about 5 to 10 minutes, and it caused some serious damage.
Where was that?
Lawsbrook Road.
That one made the TV, I think.
Yeah, I saw the images of that one.
Yeah.
But again, great job of resilience and keeping it up and going and reliable. It's a core part of the mission of this light plant. You do it well.
Thank you.
And I think also it's commendable that no one was hurt on your staff, because pushing people that hard in the dark and with the storm and the electricity and so forth, mistakes, it's very easy for mistakes to happen, particularly when people are tired, and you're bringing down trees, working with chainsaws. It's like a safety nightmare. So it's great that you've been able to keep people safe. That's really important.
Yeah, that's our key focus. And I met with the team during the outage, each group, and to see where they were mentally and in terms of fatigue. So they did a great job, and they did let me know when they were done and see it. So
did we receive mutual aid, or did we deploy mutual aid at any point?
We did. On Thursday afternoon, we got in touch with Groton and had them come over, and they sent 4 trucks, and we were able to continue to work through the night, and some other customers back on while our guys rested up. So it worked well, and Groton's been great to work with over the years. They come over and they do a good job, and they're very similar to our guys, so we know them well. And it's a good utility to be neighboring with, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
we're fortunate that they were able to respond and that they didn't have as much damage as we did. So
Mhm.
hopefully we can, pay back the favor sometime.
Or perhaps
I
better
just,
that we don't need to.
Yeah, we're just seeing more and more storms. So
Yeah.
I saw on the weather that this is perhaps a phenomenon called a derecho, like the
Oh, wait,
Spanish
say
word
that
for
again.
right.
That the word is what?
Derecho, like the
Derecho.
Spanish word for right.
Yeah.
And it's a line of thunderstorms. I'm not sure how geographically concentrated this particular one was, but it kind of felt like as if it really kind of hit us and a few other towns. Is that right, David?
yeah, I mean, that's the way it felt to me. I mean, we got a lot of damage, but some of the neighboring towns didn't get nearly what we got. So
It wasn't a question of like a microburst. People were asking about that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
it wasn't officially announced that it was a microburst. It did have a lot of traits to that, but I would say probably wasn't because we did have damage across town. It wasn't just in one area. Back in the 90s, we had a microburst on Monument Street and took out 11 poles. This is a little different than that, but very similar traits, but different.
And the definition of this derecho is it's a line of thunderstorms. But I just wanted to offer this one piece of feedback, and that is that, and maybe this all change when you get the call center going, that it wasn't really clear to me what was going on from the light plant. And part of the problem is that with the loss of power, everybody switched over to using their cell phones. And so even though I had plenty of bars on my phone didn't really work. Verizon seemed to be more heavily loaded than T-Mobile, for what that's worth. But then in an environment like this, and this is something I think that we've seen out on the West Coast during forest fires, that the communication facilities that we rely on so routinely on everyday life kind of fall apart a bit when there's a crisis. And so then you need to think about, or society needs to think about, ways to get the really essential messages out and push aside all of the other chatter that naturally arises when people are under stress. So, Twitter is a good platform because we can all visit Twitter and see what message you're pushing out. A phone tree would be good if our phones were working. I know my phone wasn't because it requires power. Verizon's, home service probably would have worked. So Twitter is a possibility. The other thing that I was thinking about is the Smart Hub app. When I opened it up, I didn't see a way to report my outage. I also saw that there was an outage map on it, but it wouldn't load very quickly. And when it did, it had inaccurate information. But again, the reason why I'm thinking about this Smart Hub is that it's a dedicated communication channel. So when I try to get the information from Twitter, and when the bandwidth is so limited that I can't really pull down much of anything at all, in order to browse over and get to Concord's Twitter page, I have to wait for a lot of other stuff to come up. The Smart app actually could potentially direct a very succinct message to each user. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we did put a bunch of tweets out as things were being restored.
Yeah.
Which was helpful to many. I think one thing to keep in mind on this particular one, again, being in a different COVID environment, the way we're operating, we know that, we didn't get as much information out, but we also know that we couldn't staff the office like we normally would during a storm. So I recognize what you're saying, Gordon, and it is something that we strive to do a better job on. I think the call center is going to really help with that. But all of those things, we do have an after action meeting that we're going to schedule to go over what we did well, what we can improve on, like we always do. And, we'll provide that feedback that you had during that meeting as well.
And just one other idea was that there are people, employees in town government that have the role of communicating with the public. So maybe in an emergency like this, the town could offer some resources to the light plant.
Yeah. Again, and I don't want to use this as a cop out, but we were operating in a different
I
mode.
understand.
Really would. I was actually in the field. Normally I'd be in the office doing that stuff. I was in the field doing the scouting and figuring out what the were, which is not normal, but it's what had to happen. And so, yes, we had some shortfalls in communication. We know that. And in this particular case, there really wasn't anything we could do about it.
And I think in your defense, okay, I compared it to the wildfires. In that case, communicating with the public is actually directly connected to their safety. In this instance, it's the public, all they had to do was just do what they were doing, which is to stay home. So it wasn't as important in that case. But there is a relationship between the two. I'm really not trying to second guess or anything. I'm just trying to offer,
ways to improve.
Construction advice. And then just one last question. Do you think that the undergrounding effort that we've been doing over the past couple of decades or several decades, is making the system more robust against a storm like that? In other words, if we accelerated the undergrounding, do you think it would have perhaps mitigated the outage?
Undergrounding certainly helps with storms. It's a proven fact. 50% of the system's underground. And if we lost any underground during this outage, it was because, overhead feeder that feeds that underground system was down. But, we have circuits that are 100% underground. We didn't lose power to any of those. So it does make a difference. Accelerating it, that comes down to a financial decision because it is very expensive. But, like I said, 50% of the system's underground, and during storms, it does help. No question about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dave, do you have other items on your director's update?
I do.
Okay.
So based on data received from the assessor's office in September, there are now 453 electric vehicles in Concord. 40% of those are enrolled in one of our off-peak incentive programs. So we're pretty excited about that. We have over 40 people signed up for our virtual roundtable for car buyers on October 20th and 24th. Our customers will get asked questions and hear about electric vehicles that will work for them. We encourage anyone that's interested to register for the roundtable at concorddriveselectric.org. Our water heater rebate program, which has been available to residential customers for several years, is now available to business customers as well. We've also expanded our residential weatherization rebate program. It's now available not only to customers heating with electricity, but also those heating with oil, propane, wood. We continue to encourage customers to heat with, We continue to encourage customers heating with natural gas to take advantage of the Mass State weatherization rebate services. And we've been working with E&E, and we've launched new online rebate portal to make it easier for customers to apply for rebates and easier for staff and E&E to process them. Our website now directs customers to the portal for LED, heat pump, water heaters, and weatherization rebate applications. We hope to transition to online air source heat pump and EV level 2 rebate applications before the end of the month. So,
and there's also commercial rebates for outdoor heater units and others.
Yep, and we're also working on a new rebate for air purifiers. So that's will be coming shortly. And then in terms of a COVID update, starting this week, we have brought the line workers back to full-time. They're still working in their groups, so they're coming in on staggered shifts. And so that started on Tuesday. Monday was a holiday. The office staff is still working on the Group A, Group B rotating. 50% of the office staff is working remotely through VPN, and then the other 50% will be in the office. So that'll continue for now. and we'll continue to evaluate our approach on that. But, you know, we feel it's safe at this point to get the guys back as long as they're separated, and they are. So that's a good thing. I mentioned at the previous meeting that the direct berry project on Barkus Farm was planned and was getting underway. That project is well underway. So the crews have been installing conduit, and we'll continue to work on that. In addition, we completed infrared testing of the overhead and underground distribution system. This is something that we do to find areas of hotspots that need repairs that you can't see just by looking at them. So we're going to start working on that. I think that's my update for today.
I want to mention, thank you, Dave. I want to mention that while you were talking, Jan typed something in the chat where we no longer have 40 registrants for the EV roundtable. We have 90.
Oh, that's great.
So
Yeah.
that's actually really good news. Thank you, Jan.
Now, did you say the IR work has already begun or will begin?
It's done.
Oh, it's done.
Yeah, we are going to bring them back in infrared Losbrook Road area in that circuit because, we had significant damage and the crews did make repairs, but we want to make sure there's no other issues that we can't see. But we do it annually on the system. And
was there any really hot transformers or any points of congestion in the system?
Yeah, we always find some hot spots, whether it's a loose connector or a failing lightning arrestor or a bushing on a transformer. So nothing out of the ordinary was found, but stuff that does need to be addressed. So it certainly proves to be beneficial in terms of reliability, and we'll continue to do that. We do have our own infrared camera. I bought it like 20 years ago, so we're now looking at replacing it. So we can do spot checks our own, but when we do the system, we hire a third party. It's much more efficient. So.
Thank you.
Great.
I think, is that the end of your update this time?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Can I just ask one question? Do we have a CIO yet? Did we figure out, did I miss something or do we have an update?
You didn't miss anything.
Okay.
We have done interviews, reference checks, and we're in the process. So hopefully by the next meeting, I'll have a little more to offer, but so far so good.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for reminding us about that, Wendy. It's been on the agenda for every month, I think, since, well, months. The next discussion, we are just a few minutes behind schedule, but I'm sure we'll make it up, is on the metering. We all received a copy of the draft RFP to hire a consultant to help us with the whole process of figuring out the best strategy for us to move forward with advanced metering infrastructure. And I think hopefully you got a chance to take a look at that. Yep.
I literally received it at 6:40 this morning, so I have.
Oh, good. Did you read it?
No.
I think that Dave will help us. He will go through it.
To go read it.
He will go through the RFP. It might be helpful to pull it up on your screen while he's talking.
I have.
We'll have a discussion about the consultant, the timeline, and
do you mind if I ask a quick question about, because I'm new to the board, communications and documents, how should I expect to receive them? What's because in preparation, I don't want to bug people for things I think I need. I want to know the normal process.
You can bug me. Normally, our goal is to get stuff to the board the Friday before meeting. We're not always great at that, depending on what's going on, but that's the goal. That way the board has some time to review the stuff prior to the meeting. This particular RFP, Laura and Carol, they put a lot of time into it, getting it ready. The RFP is for consulting services to help us craft an RFP for purchasing of smart meters. So it's the first step to getting ready for that. And I don't know if Laura or Carol want to add anything to that, but that's the general purpose of this RFP.
Okay, it's good that we're not down the road, but I just want, I didn't, it's not particular to this RFP. I just want to know the process to expect.
Yep.
Yeah, Ryan, and I'm sorry for the oversight. I probably should have sent that before then, but it was sent out prior to last week's meeting. So I just realized that you and Pam didn't have it. So Dave, Pam has that. I forwarded the original RFP to both Brian and Pam.
Okay. So, I think, at this point, we've gone through the RFP a couple times, 2 or 3 times, made edits. I think we're looking for any comments that you may have, input. We'd like to get it launched. I can't think of the exact dates right now that we had in there. I don't know if Carol or Laura can help me out with that, but we'd like to get this out so that we can get the consultant on board so we can start.
Yep. So what I'd like to do is ask whoever does have a copy of it to just bring it up on your screen so we can have it in front of us to ask questions. Dave, do you want to go through the major pieces of this for us? I highlighted some things that I wanted to have a little more discussion on, but I thought maybe you should do a quick presentation of what this includes.
Okay.
Dave, if you want
wait.
Carol or me to do that, we can do that.
That would be great.
If
Okay.
anybody has a copy of it, could they email it to me? I'm
I'll send
not
it to you, Gordon.
sure I've seen it.
I'll send
You
it
got
to
that, Wendy?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Carol, do you want to go through this, or do you want me to do it?
You can go ahead and do it.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. First, before we go into the RFP, I just wanted to also ask, given Brian's comment, whether everyone received the comments, at least the ones I'm aware of, that came from the public regarding this RFP, namely from Tim Sheckley, Sheldon Hines, and Louise Berliner. Did everybody get those?
Are these recent?
Yes. Tim's were from October 7th, Sheldon's from the 8th, and Louise from Tuesday, yesterday.
I do not have those. Anybody else?
I do not have those.
I only got
don't have
one
them either.
email. Right.
Must have just been sent to staff.
No.
I think I can double check the emails, but I think it was sent to the light board chair email address that we have. That we're having a problem with that forwarding to the right addresses. So I'll get that forwarded to the board, those, so that you guys have the comments.
Okay, because there were significant comments on this, and I won't do it justice, and the people who wrote those may in fact be present, but I can give you the gist of my understanding of some of the issues that people have with this. But let's first go through the RFP. Dave, do you have that on your screen?
Laura, I just want to make sure you're aware that a number of the people who submitted comments are participating in this meeting as participants.
Okay, great. I can't see that. So.
Let me get it opened up. Give me a second.
We also had comments from David Allen. Not on the RFP, but in more
Not on the
general
IA.
comments. Yeah,
Yeah.
and those were circulated.
Back later, please.
Carol, do you want to send it to Dave? Dave, are you looking for make sure you
Sure.
have the most recent one?
Yeah, I have the one from September 25th.
That's probably oh no, that's probably even later than the one that we have.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so if we go to the top of page 2 under project description. So let's just read right off the bat, what is the purpose of this RFP? The light plant is seeking a qualified consultant to assist in the development of specifications for and selection of advanced meter infrastructure, of an advanced meter infrastructure system. And then we define what we mean by AMI system. We're basically talking about all of the measurement and the communication system to be able to read and communicate meter readings, including two-way communication with meters, and the communications networks needed to transmit the information from the customer location to the utility, and the data processing and storage systems. So it's really more than just the meters. It's a more complex and comprehensive set of equipment. One of the objections that folks have had with this is that they believe that mentioning the word advanced meter infrastructure, which does have a meaning in the industry, is presupposing that that is the system that will meet Concord's needs. And they feel that it's an outdated concept from the 1990s that was really meant to automate meter reading and save costs, and really not sufficient to integrate renewables. So that is a debate we can have a little bit later, but in a nutshell, that's much of what the objection is about, is not presupposing that AMI is the solution, but specifying what our needs are and hiring perhaps someone more with a sustainability or renewables bent to be able to help us select stuff that will do what we want it to do.
So is it the term AMI that they're concerned with, that it's narrowing scope? And
Well,
is there an alternative term that they suggest that may be more broad in our total mission?
I'll let the individual speakers, because I don't want to, not do their points justice by summarizing them in my own words. But some of it does come down, Brian, to the fact that what we need, or all the things we want, okay, may not be available today. So do we invest a bunch of money in a radio read system that may not do everything we want? Or do we wait for some better technology to come down the road? And how long do we wait? So that's one of the questions.
Okay.
So let's go next to the project timeline, which I believe is on page 3 as the document reads.
Yep.
So assuming we have board and community agreement on what it is we are seeking, the idea would be, I think on an optimistic basis at this point, that the RFP, again, for the consultant, as David said, not for the meters, but just the consultant who will help us choose the system, that we would issue that RFP for consulting services on November 16th and do our review in the fourth quarter and sign up somebody who could then begin work in March. We tentatively had scheduled about 25 weeks for the consultant to be able to complete this, but we're not specifying a timeline. We're allowing the consultants to tell us, so they may come back with a shorter or a longer time frame. The real wild card here is if we did choose an AMI system, and let's say the consultant began work in March and we had a vendor selected by September of 2021, other townships have found significant delays in getting the contract with the AMI vendor executed solely on the vendor's end. A couple of big companies that provide these systems, and you're basically at their mercy. It's not like there's a lot of competition in the industry, and some have taken 1 to 2 years to sign the contracts. So whether we would actually begin work with the selected vendor in September of 2021 or the fourth quarter of 2021, or it wouldn't be till fourth quarter of 2022, we don't really know.
So Laura, that's sort of new news, isn't it? We haven't really talked about that kind of timeline before.
Yeah, Carol has been, and I have been doing a lot of research, talking with other municipalities who have gone through this process and are beginning to find out some of these hidden problems that others have experienced that we weren't aware of before. So yes, that's correct, Wendy.
Yeah, but I think this RFP, I think, because right now we're hiring just the consultant. This is one of the things that I've seen as an audience member is sometimes we try to predict things far into the future and get conversations kind of broadened and not out of control. I want to make sure that we focus on the consultant in the process. So with the idea that the consultant would begin work in March, ideally, when that consultant does his work and we end up coming up with an RFP for purchasing a system and going through that process, and say there is that delay, will that consultant have a clawback in 2 years to make sure that technology changes over those 2 years are identified before we install a brand new system? I think that's an appropriate question for this RFP.
I'm not sure what you mean by a clawback, Brian.
So if the consultant comes in, helps us identify an AMI system or system of a different breed, a more updated version, and then we have to wait 2 years and technology changes, can we pull that consultant back in to verify that we're still doing the correct purchase?
So we could do that. It would be an added cost. We couldn't hold them to that because technology can change, as you've identified, and
yeah,
they're giving us information based on what's available at present.
Correct.
We can't have them look into the future, but if we need to have them come back, we could do that in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but you don't think they'd have any objection to that? You don't think we need to put it in the beginning, that's something we would want to make sure that they help us ensure we get what we want in the end?
Yeah, I don't think that, I think the consultants would have a tough time putting in a proposal based on that.
Okay.
Just for legality's sake, if we were to have them come back, it would have to be, we'd have to extend the contract annually to keep them on board, and we could do that up to 3 years. Outside of the 3 years, we'd have to redo the RFP and send it back out.
Okay.
So I think that question is one that goes back to what I think the citizens who commented had, and that is, are we confining the discussion to a known technology today? And should we not, should the statement of work not specify AMI, but just say what our needs are and let them come back to us about what's currently in the marketplace and what's on the near future for replacement of it? So I think maybe that's what the question was from the citizens. I haven't read their comments, but listening to Laura, I think that's what the question was about. Not to confine it to an age.
And I think that's the approach we're taking on this, is that, there's a number of different technologies out there, whether it be, a mesh system, a wired system, a point-to-point system. We're not closing the door on any of them. And I think, we've been pretty clear on that. But I think they could come back and say there's new technology coming. We don't know yet, but that's hiring a consultant for that.
And the AMI system is really, it is the communication network between the meters and the utility in a real time and in a control sense. But things that I think would be add-ons that would be done later would be like a DERM, any kind of software to do distributed energy management. That is not AMI. That's something that is a software package that utilizes the communication structure of AMI. Am I correct, Dave, in that description?
Yes. Yep.
Good.
And on a similar theme, I could imagine the town benefiting from, well, back up. David, you've said in the past that distributed solar in town has the unfortunate effect of, making the quality of the power not as good. There may be frequency issues, something like that. I don't know the technical details. So question would be, is there an AMI-like technology that you would distribute through the system, maybe that would be associated with rooftop installations that could communicate and help solve those kinds of quality problems?
Well, smart meters
If
aren't
so,
going
maybe that belongs in here.
smart meters aren't going to solve frequency issues that you can get from solar. We haven't experienced any of them. Not to say they're not out there, they are, but we haven't had that yet in town. So, you know,
But the meter system can give you the information on a customer by customer basis of the voltage at those meters, and thus identify areas of potential issue.
So I want to
Right,
focus
it's
this
not-
conversation. I think that we need to be looking at this as the conversation we're having is about whether the RFP that's on the table is going to get us what we want. I don't want to get into a discussion about one technology versus another, or what's something new that one of us knows about. I think we want to stay focused about where we're heading and how we got to this point of having an RFP ready to go in the street. I appreciate the conversation, but
Well, the reason I know that what I said was out of bounds, except that we're also talking about whether or not the AMI is too tight a definition of what we're looking for. That's why I offered it.
and I think that's right. And I think that's a comment that citizens have offered. And I think we'll get to that as part of the whole RFP.
Yeah.
I don't want to try and solve that problem with our limited knowledge at the table right now. Laura.
I just want to mention that I think, it would be possible to more generalize the language in our request for the expertise that we're looking for. However, I think we need to be cautious that if we're too general and open-ended, my understanding is that there is no combination of hardware and service providers that can give us everything we want currently today. So do we want to make a very open-ended RFP that may give us just a bunch of theoretical, in the lab type of solutions that aren't proven technologies? And does Concord want to be the guinea pig for one of those? I mean, that's going to be a question.
That's a good question.
Laura, would it be possible, can you just quickly highlight the scope? Because I think the
Thank you.
RFP does a really good job of trying to be open-ended and address many of the citizen concerns that have been raised to date, so that we can just level set each other on sort of what's in scope here.
Okay, let me find out where the scope ended up.
Well, there's a deliverables page. I'm not sure which one. Forget the terminology.
Okay, go all the way to page 14.
Open work
14.
summary.
Yeah. Well, there's a scope there, but yeah.
14. Okay. Scope of services.
So the objective is we want a total deployment of electric meters to be completed. Well, this may be unrealistic, but at the time by 2023, in order to offer default opt-out time of use rates to all of its residential customers. We want to continue to offer distributed solar and controlled demand to our customers, including heating systems, hot water heaters, and electric vehicles. And we want to be able to offer new energy management tools to the customers, enabling them to control smart devices in their homes using their cell phones. We want to leverage the existing fiber network to the extent that we can and not duplicate physical infrastructure where it doesn't make sense. And we also want to be able to offer a wired solution to those customers who want one. So that's what we say we want.
Mhm.
And what we're asking the consultant to do is go ahead and ask us all the things you think you need to know about us to help prepare this specification. Review our goals, our concerns, including the community concerns, our current systems and applications. Quantify the expected benefits of a system-wide AMI implementation. Determine the optimal hardware and software procurement strategy, because sometimes the best of breed come from different vendors. Develop the RFP specifications, procurement documents, and evaluation criteria. Go ahead and prepare presentation material and conduct stakeholder engagement on the RFP plan manage the process, evaluate the responses, recommend what they would do, but they're not going to be making the decision. That would be obviously CMLP's decision to make ultimately. And then we need and want them to assist with the vendor contracting, because that is a very tricky piece of this system procurement. Sometimes what we understand is these vendors lead with a really low price on the hardware initial deployment, and then exact a pound of flesh every year in their service fees to make their money back. And so we need to be very careful about what we sign and agree to pay them every year to make sure we're getting the return or payback we anticipated when we, did the economical quantification up front.
Mhm.
Some of that stakeholder engagement or presentation includes addressing some of the citizen concerns around health concerns, et cetera, as well, if I read this correctly, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I think that the objective, it sounds like, includes the comments that you may have received from citizens. Let's go on and discuss what else is in this RFP that we would need to, we're being asked, I believe, to vote on this today. Is that right? Does it require a vote of the board, Dave?
No, it doesn't. I think
Okay,
it's important to have the board involved in this because it's a
okay,
big initiative going forward.
okay.
Alice, with respect, perhaps I could suggest that we use some of this time to hear feedback, since this is one of the areas I've received the most intense feedback from folks on any topic that the light plan has discussed.
Okay, good idea. Let me see if I can go to the screen here. So the first question would be, are there board comments in particular? And then we can ask for citizen comments on it.
Alice, it's Wendy. I just want to comment. I've read through it and I'm impressed that it's covered many of the topics that the board has reviewed over the last 6 months. And I actually just think it's important that we move forward with this RFP, but obviously we want to hear citizens' concerns as well. So appreciate the opportunity to talk about those.
Thank you. I also read through it, and I think I saw in the way that you did, Wendy, but I had some language changes, which I'm happy to share with Laura afterwards, regarding section 3.5 of CMLP concerns. And I think that tries to speak to what we heard over time starting with the presentation of the strategic plan, the presentation by citizens from health experts, as well as comment that we received at meetings throughout the, my short tenure on the board. And so 3.5, I just want to direct us to looking at 3.5, which is a statement of those concerns. And what I offered was to include in the final proposal a wired-only alternative to AMI, which I think we have heard over and over again from citizens.
Yeah. I just got this morning, so I haven't gone into it in detail, but I do know that we've had extensive discussions. I know that after 4 years of pushing for time of use, I went to town meeting in 2016 trying to push time of use. So we're at year 8 or 9 on me trying to get a time of use that is a default. So the last thing I want to do is delay this. And I do believe it's had exhaustive discussion. And I'm happy to see that we're going to get a consultant that has a timeline to March to get them on board and get us focused. And hopefully we can execute soon. So I do think we should open it up to some comments from the citizens, because I was not able to read them prior to this meeting. But yeah, I don't, there's no red flags that I can see in the skimming of it right now, but I haven't fully read it.
Yeah, and Brian, once you get through it, if you can send your comments in too, that would be helpful.
I'll do that later today.
Thank you.
Okay. Were there any other comments from board members? And like I said, I'll send mine to Laura if that's, or Carol after this.
I'll just say this looks good to me.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I think the timeline looks plausible, although it does seem, as always, a tight schedule. If we were to be able to meet this proposed schedule, would be great. All right, let's see if there are any comments from those who are here. I know that there are people who have commented in the past. I don't want to rehash comments that we've received and are on the record, but I'd like to hear if there's anything specific that is missing or lacking from the current RFP that's being discussed. Do citizens have any comments about that? I see a hand from Sheldon Hines. Now, how do we get him able to speak? Can you do that? I guess you can.
I clicked on
Yep.
unmute. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can. Thank you, Sheldon.
And for my information, can you see me?
No, we cannot.
That's okay. Okay. So I wrote an email on that I think you got on Friday or Thursday or Friday, describing like several main points. One of those has already been addressed, namely the term AMI system. I've worked in information system requirements definition and development for more than 30 years. And I wanted to just tell you that in the history of information systems, various people have used terms that suggest that that term itself is a solution to all requirements. Back in the days of personal computers, having personal computers in an office were considered to be a solution, even though they didn't do much before proper networking and software. And then in the late 80s, database was the big term. If you just bought an Oracle database, all your problems would be solved. And then later on for financial systems, if you just bought Oracle Financials for a large manufacturing company, that would solve all your problems. Oracle never was able to come up with a complete manufacturing package, but they sold it as such. So here, AMI is a term that mainly referring to communications, but the software connection between the data that you receive from the customers and the goals that you want to set at a very detailed level are not defined, not part of the definition of AMI. So I would agree with Alice that the goal needs to be to develop, to work with an RFP to develop AMI and complementary systems that will meet the requirements of the CMLP in the town. And that is the key thing here. And the objectives that are in my second point is that the objectives that are stated in the RFP are incomplete. If the objectives were simply as described in section 2, an AMI system would be a complete waste of money. It would have a zero rate of return on investment. The concept of rate of return on investment is not mentioned in the RFP. There's no point in spending millions of dollars on a system that simply provides communications and gives you data that you then can't do anything with at the moment. It might take years to develop systems that would actually help you with solar, with electrical vehicle powering, with repositioning of the equipment of the town, including transformers. In a meeting I had with David Wood and Laura Scott a year and a half ago, it was explained to me that the real problem in the town was that we're spending like 1/3 too much money on electricity that isn't even ever delivered to the town customers because of the misplacement of transformers. What we need to know is, for example, we need a system that will actually take the data that we receive on voltage from various parts of town and help the town reposition its transformers to actually save energy, and to maybe change some transformers to be bigger, some to be smaller, and have some flexibility for that. So that's one of the objectives that's not even mentioned in here. Getting more timely, broader information about the real-time quantitative demand for electricity will allow the town to reconfigure its transformers and to integrate with the equipment owned by the customers for the mutual advantage. And that's the main point here. And I think you just need to include some details of what the objectives are that go beyond the the very finite set of objectives here. Compare the objectives here to what are in the plans that we mentioned earlier, the town plans. This is not complete. And that's so if you're simply looking for an AMI consultant, that may be getting the wrong solution in terms of the type of consultant you want. And then my last point is that requirements should be emphasized in this thing rather than just being one little subsection. Any information system development methodology calls for first there to be a set of requirements that go into detail, which can be expressed in a data flow diagram showing how specific features that you want meet your needs. And without that, so there should be more emphasis on requirements definition in this RFP. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I don't know if we need to have a discussion about those comments. I hear what he's saying. I just have one clarification question maybe for Dave. And that is, it sounds like one of the suggestions being made by Mr. Hines is that this not to be just the meter solution, that we're looking at a whole system-wide infrastructure management that would allow us to assess the transformer placement and size. Is that what your vision? Did not think that was what we were looking for at this point. Is that and is it appropriate?
So what I've said in the past, is, having some sort of smart meters will allow us to evaluate transformer sizes. Currently we have, an overage of transformation in the system based on peak versus the distribution transformers. Some transformers could be undersized. Information that comes in from the meters allows us to evaluate that. And that's what I was referring to.
So you're not looking at this contract or this RFP as with a specific outcome for us to be able to optimize our electric grid system?
No, that's just one item.
Okay.
No.
This is what essentially we're looking for here is more granular information about the distribution system and communication networks to communicate with devices on that system. But beyond the scope of this would be software or the controls that would utilize that communication and data. Is that a correct definition of the scope that we're talking about?
I think so.
Okay.
So wouldn't software be part of this design? I mean, you can't have just the infrastructure without the software, right?
It all comes together. It's packaged.
Right.
Depending on,
Software
regardless
is
of what package
broad.
you go with, it all ties together. And it will tie in with NISC system as well.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that when we talk about software, we understand there's multiple software packages. There is no single software that is the overall solution. Another example would be vehicle to grid. If we're working with Proterra or Nuvi on vehicle to grid with the school buses, it could utilize the AMI system in the data collection, but those portals on that software would control the vehicles, and the light plant would interact based on their system. So we're not looking to do a vehicle to grid within this document. We're looking just at the communication and the data.
And I think we have talked at this table on numerous occasions that we will need to have the expertise either hired within staff or hire consultants to be able to help us monitor the amount of data that we would receive from any metered system to make sure that we are on top of the infrastructure needs as well as the distribution throughout the town and the integration of distributed generation. Okay, I think we have a comment from Timothy.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
My name is Timothy Sheckley. I'm in Boulder, Colorado, but I'm working with Louise. I have been working in this arena for probably 40 years. I was one of the people that designed the original smart meters back in the 1990s, and also with developed the technical standards that later became standardized as what's called AMI today, Advanced Metering Infrastructure. And I have to point out that as the original designer of that, working with the utility industry in the late 80s and early 90s, it was advanced at the time. That was a long time ago. We've gone a long way since that time. And I had submitted to you a paper that I was actually just published in the latest issue of Solar Today magazine. Did you receive that? It was called Intelligent Energy was the title of the article. But did anyone get that?
I can't recall.
Okay, well, I'll perhaps
If you could
send,
just get to your point, I'd appreciate it. I don't want to hear a review of your academic
well,
paper for us.
what it does is it talks about where this is going, that AMI is obsolete technology, basically, and that for you to be making an investment in that may be painting yourself in a corner as far as there's a very rapid change taking place in the electric power industry and the way that it's structured, and the way that solar, with the advent of solar and storage, and with optical fiber networks. And what my paper does is describe those changes. And so you guys are on the have the opportunity to really do this right. And if you invest a lot of money in obsolete technology, this radio-based communication technology that you're talking about, called AMI today, it will put you at a disadvantage. And I think that the biggest problem with the RFP is that it doesn't have any connection. It doesn't reflect any connection with the goals of, and I think that Sheldon said it quite well, it doesn't really state the goals of the whole thing. It's saying he wants this technology, assuming that this is the technology that will meet our goals. And then you have a climate action study that is that it just makes this leap of assumption between connecting metering and AMI with the goals of sustainability, reliability, sustainability, and resilience. So those are very important values, but does this AMI system serve those in any way? And if so, how? And that's not shown in any way here. That's just assumed to be the case. I think you need to have a consultant needs to have a little larger scope than just, how to sell you an AMI system. I don't think that AMI will do what you're talking about. Just a minute ago, you were talking about transformer monitoring and the grid management. Well, the way to do that is what they call automated distribution management system. That's what you're really looking for there. You're not looking for AMI to do that for you. It's not going to do that. It will do parts of it in a fragmented way. But have you looked at using your optical fiber network, which is a tremendous asset, to do distribution management that way, monitor transformers that way? That would make a lot of sense. And then pretty soon there will be new products coming on the market that will be basically AMI 2.0, which will be probably based on optical fiber and will integrate solar and renewable energy and storage into your grid, which is what you really need in the long run.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else?
So could I request, Timothy, that you put a link to your study in the chat so that we could follow up on what your comments are? I don't know if he's still able to speak. That's all right.
You should be able to hear and post it.
Okay. That'd be great. Thank you.
Jan, do you have a comment? You're coming up on my participant list as having something to say. Yes or no? Maybe not. All right, I see no other comments.
We have
Um,
one more.
Oh, where? Oh, here's some more. Okay, Louise,
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
yes, Louise,
Yes,
Berlin.
yes, we can.
So I just wanted to thank you all for all your efforts on this, and I feel like it's a pretty incredible document and a lot of good things. And I also feel like I'm grateful, and I hope you're okay with the fact that I've been talking to Tim because I know he's been in the field and he can articulate a lot of things that I don't understand. But I think you've got the main point, which is this request to see this in a broader way. And I know that that there's that feeling of urgency. I just don't want to see, I don't want to see the CMLP invest in a technology that'll let us down. And I was a little bit startled by Laura's news about how long it takes for vendors to actually execute their contracts. Simply because if we invest in something that doesn't get installed till say 2023 or farther on, and we commit for 10 years, we're locked into something. So those are just some of my concerns.
Thank you. Thank you. Gail Heyer.
I think I unmuted myself. Hi. I just was a little bit concerned about David's comment that the LB chair email alias may or may not have worked, because I sent comments on the draft AMI proposal back in February. So I don't know if folks received those. I don't really want to get a lot into it, but some of the things I mentioned are covered, so I was glad to see that. Another thing I wanted to mention just really quickly, that any AMI consultant, I call it AMI consultant because that's the kind of what we're calling the proposal right now, any consultant should understand the technical parameters and the relevant laws and regulations involved in making choices about utility services, including like shared uses of poles or conduits. And the reason I mention that is there are a number of lawsuits going on right now involving sort of preemption and the rights of municipalities versus national or international utility providers. So I didn't see anything in the RFP about legal requirements. I'm happy to provide more information about that if anyone has comments.
Thank you. Any other comments? I don't think I see any. If Tim is unable to post in the chat a link to his paper, Louise, would you be able to do that? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. We may be able to see it. Maybe you can Google the document if it doesn't show up in our chat box. All right. I think we have any other further comments from the board on the RFP? I think the staff has received comments both in writing and in this conversation to help finalize the RFP, so that'd be ready to go out in a week or so.
Yep. Alice, the only other thing that that has been brought up with meters is we have a customer that has requested us to install an analog meter. We don't have any, and we need to discuss that at some point. Maybe it's not today, but add that on there just to bring it to your attention, to the board's attention, that we do have a customer looking for an analog meter. We don't have any in stock, and we haven't looked to purchase any. The customer did do some research on that. So in fairness to the customer, I wanted to bring it up with the board so you guys are aware.
I think you did forward an email to us earlier with that conversation about a request for an analog meter and why. It seems like our timeline is such that we'd have time to discuss it at another point. So I think I'm glad that you brought it up, and let's keep that on the agenda so we don't lose track of the request.
Can you
All right.
that request?
Looking at our time. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, I asked Dave if he could forward that request. He said yes.
Yep. Yeah. I think it came several months ago. All right. So I think if you don't need anything else, you have from the board and you've now got comments from citizens that you may or may not have had prior, I think we are ready to move on to the next agenda item, which is the 8:45, only a few minutes behind, the cost of service rate design. Where are we picking up on this discussion? This has been a topic on our board meetings for the last several months, and we've had a good, robust conversation over time. So I think, Laura, are you taking this up for today's meeting?
Yes, mercifully, it will be very short. Basically, I collected all the comments that I did receive and have channeled them over to Baker Tilly. And so the next step is for us to get the final report back and also the final rates. Because as we make design changes, that changes the rates. And if we're going to implement these rates on January 1st, we need to put the rate sheets together for your consideration. That's something the board has to vote on. The other thing that will kind of force this all to happen in a timely way is that Russ Hissam, who's been the lead consultant from Baker Tilly on this since nearly the beginning, is planning to retire the first part of November.
Oh.
So he wants to finish this up by the end of October and get everything to us. So that's the update on the cost of service study. And, unless there's anything else, I don't think we need to discuss anything further.
I had a quick request. So we had spoken before about so the demand charges and just distributing the cost of the distribution fee based on the physical connection the customers have to the distribution network. Has there been any progress on defining what that physical connection would be?
I don't think I'm following that comment. Maybe, Laura,
Sure.
Did you understand that you can help us?
I think, Brian, are you asking for alternative ways to assess demand charges?
Correct.
Okay, so I did confirm with Baker Tilly that their proposal was to, and by the way, we can't do this today because we don't have AMI meters, but their proposal, once AMI meters were deployed, was to assess the demand fee based on the non-coincident peak. I know how vehemently you object to that.
That's directly my concern. Yeah.
I know. For one thing, I don't even know if meters can be programmed to actually calculate everybody's peak during the coincident peak. So that's a technology question we would have to answer. But an alternative way to assess the fee would be based on, for example, amperage of service into the house, 100 amp, 200 amp, 400 amp. That would be a possibility.
That was the suggestion that we had come to, and I was wondering if that has been incorporated.
Into the report?
Into the cost of service, Baker Tilly, have they looked at that method of allocating those fees?
They are familiar with that method. That's not something the board's going to have to decide on before January 1st because we have no way of implementing, such a rate because we can't measure demand on a residential basis right now.
The amperage to each home is a fixed physical connection. You remember the discussion we had?
Yes.
I want to make sure Baker Tilly is taking that feedback and is considering that as a methodology.
Okay, I'll make sure that ends up in the report.
Thank you.
I have to admit that conversation went a little above me.
Okay.
That level of detail is a bit too.
Would you like me to take some time and explain?
Not now.
Okay.
I don't want to take the board time at this point to talk about your specific methodology approach.
It could be useful to the board, so maybe we should do it sometime in the future.
We should, but then I guess my only question, Laura, is while you're asking Baker Tilly to look at that, it technically isn't going to it's not going to influence their final report, is it, in terms of their allocation of the rate design?
Well, I think what Brian's asking and what would be reasonable is to include in the discussion, since we're not going to be implementing this rate on January 1st, is just to mention that there are alternative ways that we could assess demand charges and to go into some detail about the method that Brian is suggesting, which is based on delivery amperage into each structure.
I just want to clarify sort of the scope of what was being requested. So that's beneficial. Thank you.
Is there more to this discussion that you would like the board input on, Laura? For
No.
the raise design? Okay.
You do have a hand raised. If you
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Whose hand? I can't see it right
Sheldon.
now.
Pam,
Sheldon.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to read a couple of sentences that came from Tim Sheckley. I'm not sure if he's still on. Currently available.
Wait, before you go, wait, Sheldon, before you go on, I just want to make note that there is in the chat a link to his report. If you're reading from his report, I think
No.
we'll all take it up and read that.
An email I received from him, and we're going to read two sentences, if you don't mind.
Is it pertinent to the RFP?
Yes, absolutely. It's pertinent to the rate structures that
Okay.
we're talking about right now.
All right.
Currently available smart meters and time of use rate structures will not be able to deliver on the Energy Future Task Force's expectations. The meters and time of use rates were developed for another time. They will not help with the integration of renewable energy or with achieving sustainability or resilience. The email the full email that Tim has provided includes an email that he sent to the Longmont, Colorado City Council concerning how to develop rates that would take advantage of renewables. I just want to make sure on his behalf that you are considering how to maximize the use of renewables in the time of use rate structure, and as a main priority, as described in the Energy Future Task Force's expectations. So I'm sure that Brian is well aware of how this could be done, and I hope that his comments are actually addressing this. Thank you, bye.
Thank you. All right. I think we are finished with the discussion on the rate design for now. It is currently 9:01. We have a discussion of utility scale battery now. Who's leading that conversation about utility scale batteries?
Laura, do you want to do that or do you want me to do it?
Sure. So actually, this is a good segue because first of all, let me just briefly say I disagree a little bit with the point that time of use will not do anything to help integrate renewables. Time of use as a rate structure, in the beginning, we may be encouraging nighttime use because that is the cheapest energy. But if we end up like California, where we have a ton of solar during the day, and that's where the trough is, well, you just change the time period so that the cheapest part of the day is when you have the excess solar. So you can manipulate the time of use rate to achieve some sustainability integration goals. But the segue here is to talk about what is currently limiting Concord Municipal Light from carrying out one of its main goals, which is to encourage as much in-town solar production as possible. And one of the things limiting us right now is, from a reliability perspective, we are getting close to the point where we are net importing 0 megawatts. And the problem with that, for those not technically inclined, is that the system is not designed to export the power. So if CMLP rooftops are producing so much energy that they meet all of the town's electricity needs and then some, we can't reverse the flow of the power to go back out to the grid. What would happen is the system would simply shut down. The entire town would go dark. It wouldn't be 3,600 accounts, it would be 9,000. And that's a problem. And we've talked about ways to mitigate that. Currently, the thought is that a utility scale battery may be the best way to be able to continue to encourage as much solar adoption as possible without impacting reliability. We've had discussions with a number of vendors who not only sell batteries, but also offer to dispatch the battery to meet certain objectives, financial objectives. And what we're finding is that a 5 megawatt battery that could store up to 2 hours of energy is probably going to cost on the order of $5 million. It could probably be expected to earn about a little less than $1 million in saved costs per year, somewhere between 8 and 900,000 for something close to a 7 to 10 year payback. Well, maybe more like 7. So economically, that's looking somewhat feasible. We also looked into a battery that could store 4 hours of energy, but that is considerably more expensive, closer to $8 million. And the additional economic benefits you would get from being able to store 4 hours don't appear to be enough to justify the additional cost. So we're exploring this utility scale battery. You know, there's still a debate in my mind over whether utility scale, or we should be encouraging that and pursuing that, or we should be pursuing home energy storage like the Tesla Powerwalls. But one of the problems with home energy storage, while it gives you customers a certain amount of resilience, you know, that as an additional benefit. So if the power goes out, they have a couple hours. But it's going to be very difficult to try to string all those batteries together from a communications perspective to enable CMLP to dispatch it. So the most efficient way and the cheapest way to get batteries is to acquire a utility scale battery. And Dave has done some work on possible locations where we could put this battery, geographic footprint required, et cetera. So that's sort of a status update on where we are with the utility scale battery. I know we've mentioned it to you in the past, but we have been making significant strides on researching the costs and the possible benefits to the utility.
Do you mind if I ask a couple questions?
Go ahead.
So what technology? Are you looking at lithium ion or flow batteries, or what are the proposals that you're reviewing?
We're not limiting our consideration, but most of the vendors that we've been discussing are lithium ion based technologies.
Okay. And you said, Dave, that you're looking at the geographic location. So whether or not it would be at the solar farm for W.R. Grace, or whether it would be at the substation, or whether it would be at the landfill. I assume those are the three main places to put a utility scale battery.
Yeah, the landfill really hasn't been part of the conversation because it's kind of strapped for space.
Okay.
The other two absolutely are on the table. Part of the consideration is we're limited on what side of the bus at the station it can go on. So that's a factor as well. But we have been considering the W.R. Gray site, station 219. We did explore station 223 a little bit. So we have a few options.
Okay. And I just, so Laura, when you spoke about a virtual power plant with distributed storage, you put it as a one or the other, utility scale or a virtual power plant. I think that both is what we should pursue. I don't think that there is we don't have to choose. I don't think there is a single solution to these kind of problems.
I think we have to factor in the financial benefit and that sort of thing before we say, you know, we do one or the other or both.
I think virtual power plant's pretty far off right now, but it's not a choice of do we do utility or do we do distributed. I think we pursue both.
I'm just thinking of priorities. And we can't do everything all at once. And so if we want to continue to encourage solar, what is the best way for us to be able to do that?
Okay, yeah.
So I think there are lessons to be learned. There are other MLPs in Massachusetts that have installed utility grade solar storage, and I think there are lessons to be learned. So I think that's, and I know that Dave has been talking with them as well. And I think this board has tried a while, and it'd be great to see something come to fruition on that as well. It is now 9:07. And we are, I guess at this point, looking for any additional public comments, unless there's anything more to be said on utility grade battery storage right now.
No, I think that's the update on battery storage for right now.
Could I just say,
Okay.
Because of the outage, I was kind of interested in pricing a Tesla Powerwall. I saw on their website that for my house, they'd put something in for $8,000. They would give me enough to cover over a day. My instinct is that the light plant could do something less expensively. on a per kilowatt hour basis. And honestly, I got to say that if I installed that myself in order to have coverage during an outage, I probably would tend to think of that thing as a resource that I'm using for my own resilience and be less interested in supporting the grid. So again, I think in my mind, I think that the emphasis should be on a town solution to this rather than looking to residents to fill in that need.
Thank
So
you.
I received a quote for Powerwall, and the reason for that was that there is a Connected Solutions, or there's a program. It was $3,000 off each Powerwall, and they were utilizing it as a distributed virtual power plant. So that already exists. People who own Powerwalls in the town of Concord can utilize that program. I think the light plant should have a similar program.
Thank you. All right. We're moving on. It's now, we only have a minute left on our agenda. We thought we'd try to be done by about 9:10, 9:15. So we are opening the floor to additional comments from citizens. A number of hands have gone up. Give people
lively
a floor
discussion.
and they go, okay, Carlin, let's start with you. Carlin Reed.
Oh, sorry. Hi, it's Carlin Reed, 83 Wits End. And this is really a question, I think, for Wendy, because she attended the Finance Audit Advisory Committee meeting this past week. It was a question about a draft agreement that the light plant and the broadband component are engaged in regarding payback of the broadband's loan to the light plant for $1.8 million. I think, Wendy, you said it was in a draft form at this time. And I'm wondering what kind of impact you see this having on the broadband customers. Thank you.
So I think what I commented on is in the audit report, it was noted that we need to formalize that financial relationship. And I don't have a current status on it. Dave, do you want to comment on that?
I don't have it in front of me, but we can definitely talk about that at the next meeting.
Okay.
Put it on the agenda.
Yep.
Because we haven't reviewed that with the board yet. And I don't know if Matt has anything to add to that, but we probably put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
I think
Yes, the draft is ready to be reviewed. We just didn't get it in time for the board meeting for the agenda. So it'll go on next month's meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
An agenda item with somebody else keep track of for the next meeting. Next comment, Terry Ackerman.
You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Hi, I am Terry.
Yes, we can.
I am the new select board liaison. Glad to be here. And I just have a very quick comment about town meeting coming up. The date is going to be June 13th, significantly later than usual, which may affect, it will affect the whole calendar. And I heard you talking about an extra budget meeting in December. You may be moving your whole budget timetable. I don't know, but our calendar should be out now. Town meeting is June 13th. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
That will not have an impact on the calendar year budget for the light plant.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Okay. Additional comments, Gail.
Thank you. Yeah, so Courtney Whalen is the person who I believe David spoke, had requested an analog meter. I have also made a request for an analog meter I sent by email. So Courtney was unable to participate today. She wanted me to follow up with her earlier discussion with David about the need for a testing station to ensure the accuracy and calibration of analog meters. And she was wondering if has been any further discussion or updates on the testing. I also wanted to let the board know there's a bill pending in the Massachusetts legislature that would require utilities to offer their ratepayers analog meters. So this is, Concord is can be kind of on the, the front edge of that, hopefully we can move this along. So just wanted to share those comments.
Okay, thank you. Pamela Dritt.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you because you're on the cutting edge of how we save civilization from climate change. And you're having to deal with all these complex intersections of rates and infrastructures and incentives to the citizens. And thank you for doing that, all of you. And it's extremely important when it comes to expensive infrastructure investments to get it right, because we don't have another chance in terms of wasted money. And I know it's incredibly frustrating to delay things that we know we need, but it would be worse to spend a lot of money on an obsolete system, like investing in a fossil fuel pipeline right now or a refining plant.
Thank you.
So please.
Okay, I think I see no other hands raised. I want to direct everyone to the chat, where if you're interested in reading Tim Sheckel's article, there's a link to it in the chat box. I think that we have addressed all the comments that we received in the chat. We've heard from participants who have raised their hands, and I think at this point we are ready for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote, please. Brian, you're first.
Yes.
Wendy.
Yes.
Gordon.
Yes.
Alice, yes. Meeting is adjourned. It is now 9:15.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
all.